Nigerian lawmakers have approved President Muhammadu Buhari's request to convert the over 22 trillion naira equivalent to $49 billion of loans from the central bank into bonds that will be repaid over several decades. The approval from the Senate is expected to push Nigeria's debt to gross domestic product ratio near the 40% limit set by the government. Quote, the advances were made to ensure that the government does not shut down, said a report by the Special Committee on the matter. President Muhammadu Buhari also has launched the new long-term national development plan, the Nigeria Agenda 2050. He inaugurated it in Abuja before the commencement of the meeting of the Federal Executive Council. The Agenda 50 is aimed at ensuring Nigeria attains a GDP per capita of $33,000 per annum, placing the country among the top middle-income economies by 2050. Who better to discuss ways and means than Arise Business Analyst Chika Mbonu, who is with us here for the toughest discussions. Good morning, sir. You're very welcome.
Good morning. How are you feeling? I hope you're
feeling better. Strengthen each day.
I've spoken so much about ways and means, but again, of course, for our viewers, our listeners, let me explain it, a little more.
Yes.
Just like every company, a company that takes raw materials and then produces goods and then sells goods and gets money. There'll be gaps sometimes between the time they receive money, and the time they need money to buy materials.
Yes.
So in those times, what happens to those companies who have a recourse to go to their bank to get overdraft, to tide over that period when their cash flow is low. Now the same thing with the country. In a country also, Nigeria, for instance, gets revenues from oil, gets revenues from tax, but he has to make immediate expenditure. There may be times that the revenues expected from oil and tax may not come in on timely basis, in which case this government of Nigeria will have to have a recourse to go to his own bank. The own bank now being what? Central CBN. Bank of Nigeria.
Yep. Yes.
The Central Bank of Nigeria is like a bank of last resort for the government. So that's basically the fundamental thing. So the makers of the laws, the makers of constitution, everything, even the CBN Act, recognizes that will happen. That role by CBN, they have to provide funding to the government each time there's a gap between the government's revenues coming and when they have to make expenditure. For example, if they need to pay the soldiers, pay salaries for civil servants, and all these projects are all around, and when they do pay them, and there's no money coming in yet, but the government expects some money in the future, they won't just close their hands, they go to central bank and take overdraft. Now that's basically what it is. But also there are some provisos to make sure that the government doesn't abuse this.
Yes.
Because this is short-term measure, temporary overdraft. That's actually what it is. So because the government revenues are supposed to come in from oil, tax, as the case may be, and the government wants to borrow, there must be structured lending to the government, like through issuance of treasury bills, issuance of bonds, which are programs calculated so that the money that comes into the system through those doesn't just cause inflation.
Yes.
Now, the downside of this roadmap or just collecting money this way is one analogy I want to give to you. Just assume somebody has a liver problem.
Okay.
And the doctors, but he can't give up his drinking. The doctor said you can't drink more than 2 bottles of beer every day.
Yes.
So that what happens now is that the doctor leaves him and goes away, and every night they smuggle in some drugs, bottles for him.
Yes.
The next day, when he comes, the doctor comes, he sees confusion there. He just be wondering what's happening.
Yeah.
If it's only the 2 bottles you're taking in,
you should be this
right. So the government revenue is supposed to be controlled. If you want to borrow, it is through treasury bills, through bonds, structured, calculated to avoid inflation in the country. But where you have this leakage, where if they are broke, they just go to CBN and CBN just provide them money, it causes confusion into the system. Can you imagine this? 22.7 trillion. That's so much compared to the budget. It's almost one of the full year budget of the budget of the government.
Yes.
But the other things there is that the makers of the law also say that this temporary borrowing from the central bank should not, in the current year, for example, 2022-23, should not be more than 5% of the revenues of 2022.
Okay.
You cannot take more than that. Secondly, you cannot take another one in 2023 unless the one of 2022
has been paid off. Right.
You and me know that this 22.7 trillion is not 1 year's balance.
Of course.
You know, for the last
several years.
Last how many years? You can know the amount he has accumulated. And then again, to remember what I thought about structural funding for the government, that government should actually, when they fund themselves, should go to the bond market, the treasury bills market. So the law also, I'm not a lawyer, says you cannot pay off this money by converting it into bonds or treasury bills.
Aha, this is the...
It's there.
It's in the law.
In the law.
Right.
But maybe the doctor, Ogalawan in the Senate is always an expert on doctrine and necessity. Maybe he has seen a loophole there and allowed this to happen. Let's put it this way. I hope that nobody goes to challenge this decision out there, because it's a controversial, really. But I'm not a law expert of the existing law. Prima facie, the way I understand it. But the problem has been solved. I identified it as one of the, the items in the interest of the government and the interest of the CBN governor to make sure that he makes the existing president clear it, so it doesn't, carry it into the new administration. It lightens the burden of the CBN balance sheet and makes things easier for them. Now, I said it the other day, and then you're looking at me and said, I've come again, Chika. I have a feeling that the new government, because where would the money come from?
Right, for all the things they want to do.
They want to do.
Right.
I have a feeling also that the new government will also go and have their own run on the Ways and Means cycle. But the Senate has said, don't do that again going forward without our approval. But one more thing I want to add there.
Yes.
Governor Baseke didn't pay me for this.
Okay.
Is that if you read the Senate report, he said there that a lot of the loans, a lot of the Ways and Means balance were given to states as loans. And remember, this is Ways and Means printing of what? Money.
Yeah.
And that's what Governor Baseke was saying the other day, that he has a feeling that if some things don't happen, by June, government is going to run out of money, and the only way they can run the government is removal of subsidy or recourse to Ways and Means. And people like Ngige started attacking Obaseki.
Yeah.
But so that's what it is, really. And we hope that now the CBN balance sheet, I hope the senators said that they should repay it through bonds and treasury bills. But if you imagine the quantum of bonds in the system, how would the system take about 23 trillion of new bonds?
Excellent point. Yes, exactly.
It's massive.
Yes.
It's massive. And we want to see how that can be done and they refinanced.
Wow, Chika, thanks for breaking that. Very quickly, this Agenda 2050.
Nigeria does not lack plans.
Aha.
Okay?
Yes.
For first national development plan, second national development plan, third national development plan, Vision 2010, Vision 2020. If you go and read them, it's same thing. One of them clauses there is, we need to expand our earnings away from oil.
Right.
It's always there. I have a feeling like this one also really there. It will also be there. But what we lack is what?
Execution. Yeah.
The government lacks execution skills. The political will to take the tough decisions. Most times they're lacking. So people are looking at the election. They're going to vote a party out to take the decisions, or even things are done and they're not completed. Just look at Ajokuta Steel.
Good point.
You can imagine how many generations, how many cycles of government that Ajokuta Steel has passed. It has not been completed. Look at these power projects in the north. How many cycles has passed through, it's not completed. So even things like now, I was reading in the papers that the price of tomato has gone up to almost 400% because of tomato Ebola. Meanwhile, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, we had a window to just eliminate that from the agricultural sector, but we didn't do that. So the issue for us in Nigeria is not planning. It's execution. And so see, our GDP per capita now is $2,000.
That's my next question for you.
$2,000. And then want to bring it to
33,000.
I think the magic will be there. The pregnancy can be carried for 3 months. I think, and the child will be born. And that's in Nigeria, we imagine so many things.
Indeed.
I would like to see the how. How. In 8 years, the existing president, by the way, time is the enemy of politicians. Yeah. The president didn't do this since. He just launched it at the end of something. Hand over to his successor. So how did our per capita increase between 2015 that he came in and 2023 that is living? That we can move from, in 2050, our GDP per capita move from $2,000 to $34,000. I mean, how would that work? What is Nigeria? Let's continue to plan.
All right, business analyst Chika Mbonu. Chika, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time.